Hey guys, Andrew from the MTG Rundown here, and today giving you a nice little special video to kind of help you out with what can I do to fix the top tier decks now that Alrund's Epiphany is gone, Faceless Haven's gone, and Divide by Zero is gone. Luckily for us standard players I should say, we're in a good spot. I think, we're not losing too much that's going to go, oh my gosh, it's ruining and shaking up everything. You're not getting rid of entire decks. It's just making some little changes here and there to make things simple. Currently, the top three decks that I've been messing around with have been Mono Green, Mono White, and then Izzet Control. With Izzet Control, that's the biggest hit, the biggest deck that took the heaviest hits. Because it's losing Alrund's Epiphany, it's losing Divide by Zero, so it's missing two sort of key cards to help make things work. Other decks that are affected by that, obviously, Azorius Control is definitely going to miss Divide by Zero since that was such a powerful card for that deck. But then for Mono White and Mono Green, we're losing Faceless Haven. Now, with those, not a lot of changes are done. I'm going to be honest with you, there's not a lot of changes. And I'll dive into it as we look through the decks. I have them all right here, all the cards for them. I made them all pretty too. And yeah, we'll just dive right in. So let's take a look at Mono Green first. So pull that up, and here we got Mono Green. So with Mono Green, it is basically how it went was it was more of a land-based thing. Beforehand, you had like 3 or 4 Faceless Havens and then 1 layer of the Hydra. And then you're running about 17 to 18 snow-covered forests. Everything else basically remained the same. You have your Ranger classes, Sculptor of Winters, stuff like that. So with this deck in particular, you're actually going to be keeping the snow-covered forests. The reason being for it is A, Blizzard Brawl. That is the big reason. Blizzard Brawl is really good. It's really solid, it's good removal, so you're going to want the snow-covered lands for that. On top of that, Sculptor of Winter is just super solid with untapping mana and giving you extra ramp. So what did I do? So to make up for Faceless Haven, I decided to throw in 3 more Layer of the Hydras and then 1 more snow-covered forest into this list. My reasonings? So there are a couple other options that we could look at as far as lands, like creature land type. Like we have like Crawling Barrens that could have done well. But honestly, I just felt that the only other option we had was Crawling Barrens, and that's not necessarily as good as Layer of the Hydra. With Crawling Barrens, it produces colorless, it's not even snow, and then it taps 4 to activate to be able to make it into an elemental, giving it 2+1/+1 counters. And then you do have the choice of making it a creature or not, but you're basically just kind of stalling at that point. I think it's too slow for mono greens. I think it's too slow for any aggro or monocolor deck. Layer the Hydra, I feel like brings better, it makes it better for you. While it's not a snow-covered land, and it's going to suck if you draw 3 or 4 of those early game, it's still a good pressure card that can be relatively cheap. And it can be relatively easy to activate versus how Crawling Barrens would have worked. So yeah, I decided to go with the more Layer of the Hydras, and extra snow covered to finish out this list, but everything else remains the same. You're still going to go burr, you're still going to go hard with this deck, and you're going to go really fast. Sideboard didn't change, everything looks good there, so that's Mono Green. Now let's go back, and we're going to look at Mono White next. With Mono White, I saw no reason to have snow-covered lands. Not anymore. Faceless Haven was the reason you ran snow-covered lands on that deck. You can maybe bring an argument to bring out the 1 white card from Kaldheim. Let's see if I can look it up. That would allow you to search for something dependent on how, and then you gain life for depending on how much snow mana you used. Let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, right there. Search for Glory. So, like, you have an argument, very, very faint argument for that if you wanted to bring out like a Thalia or your Adeline, or Adeline, however you want to say it. But honestly, no, there's no reason to. In all fairness, there's no reason to run snow-covered lands in mono white anymore. You don't have to scour your LGSs looking for snow-covered lands. You can just use basics. So what I did is I kind of did something similar like I did with mono green. I added the plains in there. I took them all the snow-covered out, made them basic plains, and then I added Cave of the Frost Dragon. Cave of the Frost Dragon is still a solid card. It is good for late game when you have petered out. It makes a 3/4 flying body that is still very strong and can still win you games. The deck didn't change much. You're still using Adeline. You're still using Elite Spellbinder, Brutal Cathars when you want. This deck list is a little different just because I was running into some weird decks, and I'm like, okay, that's it. I need to add one of the different things. So you'll have to excuse if you see like Valorous Stance. What the hell? But no, you're basically, everything is still the same. Everything is still your basic going fast with mono white and hitting them in the face. Sideboard didn't change that much. You're still going to run, I would still run a Redain or two in the sideboard because of mono green. And also there are other reasons to run Snowlands. Like, while Faceless Haven was the main reason, there are still powerful cards out there that require Snowlands. So Redain's a really good thing, and it also helps with control too. That's mono white. Mono white, as I said, did not get a lot of changes. I basically just went from snow covered to regular good old basics, and then added some Cave of the Frost Dragon. The Cave of the Frost Dragon cards in there. Now, the actual one that took me a little time was Izzet Control. So, here is my new version of Izzet Control. Alrund's Epiphany is gone, Divide by Zero is gone. So those are two cards that were pretty powerful in this deck. Basically, Galvanic Intervention no longer is needed. That's the one that lets you copy the spell and you flash it back. Now, you can use things like the Alchemist Gambit, I think it's called. Yeah, Alchemist Gambit, to do extra turns. You could. You definitely could. It's 7 mana. Unless you're not foretelling it, it's the same mana cost as using Alrund's Epiphany, or you can use the cheaper version if you think you can kill him that turn. This is still a possible card to use. I am not going to say it cannot be used. I don't see a reason to use it. Personally, I don't see, without Alrund's Epiphany, there's real no reason to go extra turns. I think Izzet is in a good spot to be a just regular controlled deck that has a little bit of oomph behind it to kill your opponent. Plain and simple. With that being said, I'll show you what I did. So the deck list that I took was a primarily spell-based. Very much stopping them where you're at. You're using your Hall of the Storm Giants to swing in, and you're using your birds from Alrund's Epiphany to win. So basically we were going back to how the decks kind of looked, and that's using things like Goldspan Dragon to hit them hard. That, I believe, is the only creature I am running in this deck. Goldspan Dragon, obviously 4/4 flyer. This card I was surprised that wasn't banned, just because it's such a hard card to kill without some type of drawback. But, you know, it is what it is. I'm not against it. I like the card. I'm just surprised it wasn't banned, because Wizards. Other than that, other things that I did, I kind of changed up the mana base a little bit. I added an extra, I took out a mountain, added a Den of the Bugbear. Reason I did that was because with Alrund's Epiphany, you got the bird tokens, and that still created pressure. We don't have a lot of pressure anymore that's creature-based. Plus, it's good to have little blockers here and there, so having the 2 Hall of the Storm Giants and a Den of the Bugbear, it gives you that pressure, but it also allows you to make a token that can not only add pressure, but if it lives, could be a good little blocker. To replace Divide by Zero, I decided to add more destruction. With Divide by Zero, you either bounce the spell or a permanent back to a player's hand as long as it was 1 or greater. Very solid card, but I figured the best way to replace it is something that just removes it all entirely. So adding an extra Demon's Bolt, then also going with some more board wipes. Draconic Intervention, I'm putting 1 in there to kind of test it out. I don't know if this card sticks, but this is not a bad card. It's great for board wiping, especially if you have like Unexpected Windfall in the graveyard, or a Behold the Mysteries in the graveyard that you're not going to use and you just want to wipe the board for 4. It also could work if you have a Burn Down the House in the graveyard. So you just wipe the board for 5 and your Goldspan dragons still live because they're dragons. Or if you have this activated for some reason, that's still going to live because it's a 7/7. I added an extra Burn Down the House to my list because of the fact that you're gonna do a big board wipe for 5, or you can make 3 little 1/1 dudes that are gonna cause pressure, and when they die, they can ping. Because beforehand I was kind of running, I had the Outrun's Epiphanies in there. I had a couple Divide by Zeros, and so those being gone, the best way was to basically destroy, but also gain more card advantage. So this list previously ran 3 Expressive Iterations and 2 Memory Deluges. I went 4 of for Expressive Iteration because it's a solid card. It's very good. It allows you to play lands from exile. It does not matter if you're casting the card or not. It just says play. Memory Deluge is solid. Adding another one of those just to help dig through to get these new cards, to get the destruction, get what you need to stop whatever your opponent's doing. Sideboard didn't change too much just because of I did have to do some working around. Beforehand, the Goldspans were in the sideboard and it was just all spells, so taking them out. Basically adding another Cinderclasm. The Smoldering Eggs are in there for more of the mirror and mid-range matchups, in my opinion. Crush the Weak, still in there. I added Draconic Intervention just to help with that. And I believe, Disdainful Stroke I threw in there as well. So those are how the top decks have kind of changed up. As I said, they're not huge changes in my opinion. As I said before, the hardest one to really change was the Izzet control. Because it's like, okay, which way do I want to go? Do I want to go back to dragons? Do I want to keep it more of a control-y type feel? And I felt control-y type feel was the best route. Now, with these bans, with any time there's a ban, there's always an opportunity for decks to kind of climb back up there. There are 2 decks that stand out to me that I kind of feel like could make a good push to get into that top tier. So the first one I'm going to show you is a Naya mid-range deck. Now, I love Naya decks. I love the Zoo field decks, just because playing Zoo is like one of my favorite archetypes to play. So with this deck, it's basically mid-range go fast. You're playing your early threats. Well, not really early threats, but you're doing that for ramp. Then you're getting your 3 drops out a little bit faster, like Reckless Stormseeker, Briarbridge Tracker, Elite Spellbinder, Brutal Cathars, just to control the field. Then you move on. You got Asika's Chariot, because that's solid. Halana and Elena. I love Halana and Elena partners. This card I really feel is underrated. A 2/3 first striking reach. At the beginning of combat, you put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature where X is equal to their power, and that creature gains haste. So before you even declare attackers, it basically does like a Reckless Stormseeker, but just a tiny bit better. That's solid to me. That's just good. I really feel like Naya midrange has something here. Then we have Showdown of the Skalds. Now with Showdown of the Skalds, this is a nice little, this is something, a good little finisher or about to be a finisher to get to your finisher. You exile the top 4 cards of your library on the first stage, and then until the end of your next turn, you can cast those cards. Or you can play those cards, I'm sorry. Because if they're lands, hey, another one of those things, it's like, hey, it's a land, cool, I can play it, get it out of my hand. The next two stages where it's great is whenever you cast a spell, this turn you put a +1/+1 on target creature you control. So this works really well with like Halana and Elena and the other cards you have just a buff. And then the third stage, you just repeat that. But you won't have those cards. If you have any cards left from that exile, they will be gone by the time it's at the third stage. Now we move on to our 5-drops. 3 gold spans, obviously, and Wrenn and 7s. Wrenn and 7s is a solid... Wrenn and 7 is still a solid Planeswalker, guys. This thing is great for making a big old dumb tree folk that is just going to block. It also helps you dig through your deck a bit. Because, I mean, you're honestly using it for either the +1 or the -3. In Standard, those are the two that you're using the most. If you use 0, it's because you've somehow accumulated way too much land and you're just like, I'm tired of this. There's no more mystery of what's in my hand. If you get to -8, then that's definitely something. I don't think -8's needed. Again, you're using the +1 and the -3 the most for this card. Land base is pretty solid. It's 3 colors, so it's going to be a little difficult to get everything out you need. I mean, that's just how there's no fetch lands, or good fetch lands, I should say. There's still evolving wilds, but we're talking about the good fetch lands, like Scalding Tarn or, Wooded Foothill. That would be great if they were in Standard. Wizards. Let's bring them back. Let's cause some chaos. Anyways, at this point, Jeff just put a no. The land base is great. This set has really helped with these kind of dual-esque lands where you have the red-green, you have the red-white, green-white. It helps a lot. The flip lands are great. 1 layer of the Hydra in there for the late game where, crap, I'm just getting flooded. Well, I guess I'm pumping into layer of the Hydra. Sideboard is pretty typical sideboard. You have a lot of removal. You have a lot of saying no to snow and big spells. You have things to help you against mirror matches or mono green or something like that. I put in a board wipe just because sometimes decks are faster than you. Everbrook Caretaker, this is just a personal favorite of mine just because I love this card. And then another Halana and Elena partners. Thalia's in there to help with the control decks and the ones that utilize a lot of spells. And a couple Ranger classes just for if you want to go a little faster. If you want to try to match, like maybe you're going against mono green or mono white and you want to kind of match up with those decks, Ranger class is a good thing to add in. Maybe you sideboard those out for a couple, like a Showdown of the Skulls and maybe Halana and Elena because you want speed at that point. So there's that one. The last deck I'm going to show you that I think could really come back is Vampires. Rakdos Vampires. I think we are in a good spot for decks like this. Yes, it's tribal. There's probably a Rakdos deck out there that's probably better. But I don't want to shy away from Vampires. If I did, I think Happy would kill me. I think Vampires can be in a really good spot. I feel the removal of things like Alrund's Epiphany, where you're just going through, and your opponent's just going through an extra turn, and stuff like Divide by Zero and Faceless Haven being gone, I feel like it opens the door for Vampires to come back. So with this list, it is aggro-based. You're going fast. It has a mid-rangey feel, but you are going fast. You have plenty of 1-drops here with creatures. I'll move that card down, or I might move that card down. No, I won't. I'm not moving that card down. But anyways, you have 1-drops like this. Like this comes on the battlefield, pings them, you make a blood token. Falcon Wrath, Pit Fighter, it's a 2/1 body. You can discard it to sacrifice, and as long as they lost life this turn, you can do that to get some card draw. But it's a 2/1 body. Valentin, Dean of the Vein, you're using it for the black side, not the green side, obviously. You could do the green side. I believe there's a way I think I did put it in this deck, did I? No, I didn't. That's all right. You don't need the green side. Even if you found a way to do it, you don't need the green side. But no, it's a 1/1 body, menace lifelink, really solid, can make you tokens whenever an opponent loses their creature. So that helps. Moving on to the two, and also with the play with fire, nice little burn, but it's better shock. Plain and simple, it's better shock. Infernal Grasp, 2-drop, real solid. Now, some of my favorite cards in this deck. I love Volderen Bloodcaster. 2/1 flyer. Whenever it or another creature dies, you create a blood token. Whenever you create a blood token, if you control 5 or more, you transform them into the Bloodbat Summoner. It becomes a 3/3 flyer. In the beginning of your turn, or your combat of your turn, you choose up to 1 target blood token you control, and it becomes a 2/2 black bat creature with flying and haste. Now, it's probably going to be tough for you to get this to flip and do this, but if you can, oh, it's so much fun. Just watching all these little bats going, ha-ha. Blood Tithe Harvester, 3/2 for 2 mana, makes you a blood token, you sacrifice it, give a creature -X/-X, where X is twice the number of blood tokens you control. You can only activate it as a sorcery. It works as a removal. It's a good removal, especially if you're making a bunch of blood tokens, or it's a 3/2 body. Vampire Socialite. This card is great. It is a great addition to Vampires. 2/2 for a black and a red, Rakdos. It is a menace. When it enters the battlefield, if an opponent lost life this turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on each other vampire you control. As long as an opponent lost life this turn, each other vampire you control that enters the battlefield comes in with an additional +1/+1 counter. Wow. This card is fun. So it helps you when you're going into a game where you may know or not know that they could outpace you. But all you have to do is ping them with something like a Volderen Epicure or something along those lines, and bam, your creatures are coming out stronger than they were, and you're not getting a huge drawback because you played this early. It's okay to play this card early. You don't necessarily want to, but it's not a bad idea to play it early if you need an extra early game threat. And this is a threat. Moving on to the 3 cost. Florian, Volderen Scion. This card's a good one. It's a 3/3 first striker for 3. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, so your second main phase, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the total amount of life your opponents lost this turn. Exile one of those cards, put the rest of them on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may play the exiled card this turn. It's good. It's just a solid body. 3/3 first striker, so, killing it in combat's going to be a little tougher. And it gives you card advantage. It could maybe help you get into your second main phase where you're like, okay, I need that 1 extra land, so I can do something like Agadeem's Awakening. Or I can play something big like a Sorin, or one of these other cards I have in here. It's helpful. It will get you what you need, hopefully, and everything goes well. Agadeem's Awakening, we throw in here for Graveyard Recursion. Bring stuff back. Why not? For the more expensive cards, we have a bunch of 4-drops. So in here we put the Blood Vial Purveyor. Just put one of 5/6 Flying Trample for 4. It does give your opponents things like gives them blood tokens for whenever they make a spell or whenever they cast a spell. Sorry, make a spell. I feel like I'm talking about alchemy here or something. Ha ha ha. Anyways, whenever it attacks, it gets +1/+0 till end of turn for each blood token defending player controls. So yes, they do get a way to loot, but it also can be a negative thing because this thing gets stronger and it starts out as a 5/6 Flying Trampler. It's just an overall good card. It's a good pressure card. It's one of those cards, it's like, oh cool, you're giving me something. But that thing is also helping you. Don't know how I feel about that. So definitely a good card. Another one I put in here is Henrika. Henrika Damnathi. This beautiful queen, in my opinion, is a 1/3 flyer for 4 mana. At the beginning of a combat, on your turn, choose one that hasn't been chosen. Each player sacrifices a creature. You draw a card and lose 1 life, or you transform her. When you transform her, she becomes Henrika Infernal Seer, a 3/4 flying Death Touch lifelink that when you tap 3, so 2 black and a colorless, each creature you control with flying, Death Touch, and or lifelink gets +1/+0 until end of turn. This is another solid card that's good for finishing off games. It's good if they have like one big creature, like if they have just a solo Goldspan Dragon there, and you're like, cool, I'm going to go Henrika, beginning of combat. We're each going to sacrifice a creature. Even if Henrika is the creature you sacrifice, that's fine. You're getting rid of a Goldspan. The transformation's also really good too, and drawing a card. Sure, I'll pay a life to draw a card. I'll Phyrexian Arena myself any day. Sorin the Mirthless, Planeswalker. Just a solid Planeswalker to have here. It's a good one-of. It can make you tokens. It can help you search for things, or it can help you dig through for things. And if you can -7, that's hilarious. Anji, Maid of Dishonor. Another fun one. I saw this card when it was first being spoiled. Immediately fell in love with it. 4/5, whenever Anji, Maid of Dishonor, let me try that again. Whenever Anji, Maid of Dishonor, and or one or more other vampires enter the battlefield under your control, create a blood token. This ability triggers once each turn. You tap 2, sacrifice another creature or blood token. Each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. Another solid finisher. A 4/5 for 4, so right there is automatically great. You also tap 2 mana, and you can get rid of one of these blood tokens or a creature that isn't doing anything, and you're draining them for 2. It is great for finishing off players. The mana base, pretty simple. It's Rakdos colors. I put 2 Hive of the Eye Tyrants in here to just for more late game shenanigans. If I can't get anything, I swing with my lands. Same with Den of the Bugbear, same reasoning. Obviously, the Rakdos dual lands, flip lands, a few basics, and then the Volderen Estate. Volderen Estate helps with bringing things out. If you need that extra color to get that vampire out, there it is. You can also create blood tokens, and if you have 5 vampires out, well, you just tap it to make a blood token. As far as sideboard goes, I decided to put in some removal. Blood Chief's Thirst, Duress for hand hate against control decks. Go Blank, another solid card against decks that you want to abuse their hand but also get rid of their graveyard. A couple of the creatures I put in here, Falcon Wrath Forebearer. This is just a good one where you can create, it's a little flyer, you can create blood tokens and then you sacrifice it, and you can sacrifice 2 blood tokens to bring it back from the graveyard to the battlefield. It's good. This card I like just as a constant swinger. I think it's good for decks that are, good against decks that are also going fast or do not have a lot of graveyard hate. So that's a possible card to bring in. There's only one of them in there just because it is a test card, but that's why I like it. Graveyard Trespasser, good for graveyard hate. 3/3 werewolf. Doesn't fit with the vampire theme, but it does fit with the, hey, I don't like you having stuff in your graveyard, I want to get rid of it. And it's a solid card. Inscription of Ruin, again, going after the control decks and going for more hand hate. I put another Henrika in there. And then Vampire's Vengeance is a good little mini board wipe if you're going against, mono white decks. Or mono red. There's been some mono red decks I've seen, but they run cheap creatures. Vampire's Vengeance touches their stuff, gives you a blood token, but leaves the majority of your stuff alone. Those are the 2 decks that I see could make a jump. I really want to see Vampires make that jump. I think it would be great to see Vampires come back. I think it's really solid. And I think the changes that I've made to these decks keep them relevant. These bans, the biggest one that's affected has been the is it control or is it turns. And that's okay. It's still going to be a solid deck to play. They're not, it's not like they're losing like a heavy hitter. Like they're not losing like Hall of the Storm Giants, or they're not losing, Goldspan Dragon. So they still have ways to win effectively. They don't need Alrund's Epiphany to do it. And even if they want to, they could still go with the Alchemist's Gambit and just go that route too, but you're going to run the Goldspans and you're just going to take extra turns that way. Mono white, you don't need snow-covered lands anymore. That's a good thing. That means you don't have to scour your LGSs going, I need every snow-covered plains you may have. Mono green stays the same. You're just putting more Lair of the Hydras in. That's about it. So those are how these decks change. As I said before, they are not massive changes. They are minute. The only ones that get the big changes are with Izzet Control. And then with the Naya mid-range and the Vampires deck, I think those two decks have a chance to get up into top tier. Honestly, I think they have a chance to get up there to really shake up the meta and bring something a little bit more fun back and get rid of the stale that we've had. But that is about it for me today. Hopefully this helps when you go to fix up your standard decks to build something up. I hope it does help. So this has been Andrew from MTG Rundown, and I hope you guys have a great day.